Um, Thank you for this opportunity, and I just want to say welcome to everyone today. I'm really excited to be part of this event in our city, and I want to thank the Equity Board for their work in organizing this. One of the highlights for me last year during, a second year of COVID was to be able to form this board and do the interviews and meet an amazing group of residents that I had never met before, just to start this important work. So we know we need to continue the dialogue, and we know we need to educate ourselves on community and the community on the important historical issues that have marked our country. So earlier this month, I issued a proclamation honoring Black History Month and the significant scientific, technological, economic, political, and cultural innovations of African Americans in the United States. The proclamation is a statement of our city values in which we acknowledge and reject the long history of institutional and structural racism toward African Americans in the U.S. The observance of Black History Month calls our attention to the continued need to confront racism and to build a society that lives up to its democratic ideals. I want to thank everybody for coming today and being a part of this work and for making Issaquah a better place for all. Thank you, Shay.
Thank you, Mayor Polly. We appreciate you joining us today, and we appreciate those wonderful remarks. We are so honored to have you here today. Now, I'd like to introduce our Human Services Manager, Monica Negrilla, who will go over our housekeeping rules today. Monica, if you would, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much, Shay. This is Monica Negrilla. I'm city staff here at in Issaquah, and I'm also the staff liaison to the Equity Board. I have the honor to be working with the wonderful board members here. So just a few reminders for us today as we continue for some of these technical issues. You may ask questions in the chat. If you're not familiar with WebEx, you're going to find the chat feature in the lower right-hand side corner of your screen. So please feel free to ask questions. Our moderator, Rodney, later in the session will take your questions, and the panelists will be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Also, you might see on your screen on the right-hand side a brief poll. We would love for you to answer that question. We'll have also a few poll questions at the end of this session. So we are just excited to have you here. And last but not least, of course, this is a part of our Cultural Conversation series events that are meant to really increase awareness in our community, promote community education and inclusion. And so with that, we really would like to ask you and remind you to please keep your comments positive. Really, we welcome questions that foster authentic, respectful, and genuine conversations. But let's remember to treat everyone and everything that you hear as an opportunity to learn and grow. Let's seek understanding and unity as a community. And with that, Shay, I'm going to hand you back the microphone. Thank you. And I'm excited about the event.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And we appreciate you giving us those housekeeping rules. So before we begin our event, I would like to introduce our moderator. I'm honored to introduce you to my friend, colleague, and my accomplice in DEI work. Professionally, Rodney is a senior veterinary consultant and a territory manager. He is a diversity, equity, and inclusion leader and ambassador. Rodney is a St. Louis native and a graduate of the University of Missouri. He's a member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity and an overall amazing human. I am so thankful to have him here with us to help us with this event. Rodney, it's on you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Shay. That was such a wonderful introduction. I hope I live up to all of the things Shay said today, you all. I'm super excited and I'm happy to be here. This is such a important and meaningful conversation. So I'm looking forward to diving into it and leaning into it and understanding and learning, and even on my end, learning is important. But I'm also excited to be here with the panelists, these amazing individuals with different perspectives. So I'm super excited to go through this particular conversation with you all. So to start, we're going to allow you all just to introduce yourselves, who you are, and just a little bit about what brought you all to actually be a part of this particular panel, this conversation today. So I will start with Allison.
Hi, everybody. I'm a working mom of 3 boys and 1 bonus daughter, and I have lived in the area for over 20 years, and I work in marketing, and I'm excited to be here to have this important conversation.
Thank you, Allison. I will go to Amber.
Hi, everyone. My name is Amber Overton. I am located in St. Louis, Missouri. Former colleague of both Rodney and Shay. I've worked in corporate DEI for the past few years. Recently transitioned into my role as Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for Girl Scouts of Eastern Missouri. So pretty much all of my work history has been at the intersection of education and equity, and most importantly, serving young people in the St. Louis region.
Thank you, Amber. I will go to Aisha.
Hi. I joined this panel primarily because of Shay. 2020 was pretty difficult for a lot of people, and I was exposed to just this dense thicket of anger and resentment and hurt from the community in Washington, like just us all being isolated because of the pandemic, and then the atrocities that happened in 2020. It was very tough for all of us, and then we were having like a lot of reactive conversations online, and I met Shay in the thick of it, and like trying to like show the positive aspects and really showing what could be changed and what change means. And it was amazing to see how like strong she is, especially as someone who isn't strong at all. And I tried to also join in and help. I didn't last very long, but like she has kept it all in. She has kept it all together, and she brought me in again and to this panel. She invited me here, and I wish to learn and continue to grow with that help.
Well, thank you, Aisha. We know for sure that you are just as strong, if not stronger. You're a part of this conversation today, so thank you for that. And I want to say just thank you for setting the tone. Like you already leaned in, and this has already become a very authentic conversation. So I appreciate you for that. So thank you for that. I'm also going to go next to Tony. A little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Tony. Let's see, I am a military veteran of several years, over a decade. I'm a graduate of the University of Washington. I work here in the Issaquah area for a major technology company and located in Redmond, Washington. So I've been here in Issaquah since 2015. So I've loved to see this community grow and loving seeing it actually grow even further in diversity and whatnot. I also serve on the equity board as a vice chair with Shay. And I'm looking forward to this conversation, learning, imparting knowledge and learning, and just learning from different perspectives about Black History Month.
Thank you so very much, Tony. And then last, I'm going to go to Jacob.
Hey, my name's Jake. Pretty much the same reasons for being here. I got into one of those conversations with Shay on Nextdoor during COVID, and I grew up in Buckley, been in Washington my whole life. Been in Issaquah for 5 years, and some of the news stories makes you want to come and talk to people. Make sure everything's right like it should be. Thanks.
Thanks, Jake. I'm already excited. This panel is, like I already said, is going to be a very great conversation. Before I get started, for me, I just had a few things I just want to kind of put out to get started with me in regards to this work and being here, and particularly Black History Month. So I know Shay had you all do a poll, and we'll speak to that here in a second. But I do want to point out that it is impossible to remember all the importance and contributions that African Americans have made to the nation's history in just 1 month. And but I do think there's power in, you know, giving African Americans a month. So I do think Black History Month inspires people of all races to just take a moment to pause, and they can actually reflect on the achievements of Black people. And I think that's so important. And that's essential. It's an essential part of raising awareness about a lot of our unsung heroes and events and organizations and institutions that have shaped our nation's history. So I do want to point out, it's going to be a great conversation, but I could not start out like in a little bit about Black History Month from my perspective. And then for the panelists, before we get started with the panelists, I do want to point out that the power of this today is the panelists and even the attendees today, right? It's the power is in the whole and not in the individual. So I want everyone to be authentic. Thank you, Aisha. I want everyone to share their lived experiences. I think that's so important. We all should be inviting the diversity of thought. So there's no right or wrong answer. I think we are all speaking for someone, so it's important that that voice is heard. I'm also encouraging everyone on panelists and attendees to be present. When you're present, you are contributing. When you're present, you are listening. And when you're present, you are learning. So be present. Take this next, 40 minutes or so to really be engaged. And then I just want to say, be okay with learning. None of us know everything. And when you think you know everything, you're not open to learning anything. And I think that's so important. So with that, I am ready to get started and start with our first question. So panelists, get ready. I'm coming your way. I'll start here. So Black History Month became officially recognized in 1976 under President Gerald Ford. He said we needed to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavors throughout our history. This is clearly a call to action. Now I'm going to turn to the panelists and we will discuss how our community has responded to that call of action. So my first question to the panelists, and remember panelists, I think we're going to, if you remember the hand sign, and then I'll just kind of call you all once I see the hand signs up. But the first question will be, how do you think we as Americans have lived up to President Ford's call to action? And I will go ahead and whoever wants to jump in as I am navigating the space. So I think, Aisha, I see your hand first. Feel free.
Hi, I think we weren't, I'm thinking about this from the 2000s, like the experience from the 2000 and 2010s as Gen Y or Gen Y. And I remember not really engaging in Black History Month exactly. I remember being exposed to it in the media. We actually had really great media to some extent. Like I had the comics section in the Chicago Tribune. We had the Boondocks. So like that was my only exposure to really deep thought as a young kid. And I could like carry that on with like really start questioning things, but I didn't know where to go from there. I had like US history. I was in a mostly an Islamic school. I was in mostly like folks from Middle East, Africa, South Asia, and we were exposed to US history with a lot of Black history elements all throughout the year because it was very important to us as folks immigrating in. But it all just didn't click until, and even in university, like I started reading up on, journalists, Black journalists, like really cool ones like Ta-Nehisi Coates, like from The Atlantic. Like I was really obsessed with him in his 2008 coverage. But it never clicked until I saw people like me, like just like my peers, my age on social media, like really like explaining how these events, how these legislation really affects normal people, not just journalists, not just thinkers, not just me, like it connects the media, like the Boondocks level, like social commentary to like real authentic people. Because that I could relate to that. I'm a real person. I can relate to that part. I can't really, like, I could fight for legislation, but I feel helpless. But I don't feel helpless trying to relate to real people and like trying to hope for the better and like try to help in the community and relay that to people around me who don't know about other people like us, like other humans struggling.
No, thank you so much for that. Actually, it's so much to unpack in what you just presented to us. I think it's amazing. One thing that I love that I heard you say is just the power of social media, right? The generation of Gen Z, Gen Y, and how that social media can transcend across so many different areas and reach so many different people. That's actually very powerful. And if we have time, I would love to come back to that. But thank you for getting us started. That portion is powerful from your lived experience. Allison.
So I may be one of the few people on the call that's old enough to remember when Ford made that proclamation. I was in elementary school. I'll date myself. And, you know, I think we have done an okay job. I think there's so much more we could be doing, and we're not nearly living up to maybe the intent of the proclamation. I don't feel like I received enough education through my formal education on this particular issue. And, you know, we have the PSAs during February on radio and television, and they give you those little fact nuggets, but they don't really do a good enough job of educating us and perhaps retraining us in terms of what we originally learned. And I'll use an example. I was watching Watchmen a couple of years ago and learned about the Tulsa massacre. And I was horrified that I was learning about such a painful period in our history from a popular TV show, and that I hadn't read about it. And I've been to school a lot, so it was very disappointing that I hadn't been given the raw information, the reality of it, that it had been glossed over, that it hadn't even been mentioned. And I think there's probably quite a few people in my cohort that have had that same experience and have felt that way. And I felt very let down and very angry that I wasn't given the reality of the situation. And it became galvanizing for me in terms of questioning everything that I had learned around history and the view of our country, because I just believed that it wasn't correct, that it had been somebody else's agenda and somebody else's filtering. And I wanted to go back and relearn and re-educate myself in terms of what really did happen. Because if we're not challenging ourselves to learn that, if we don't understand that, we are just being part of the problem and not part of the solution.
No, Allison, thank you so very much. Let me say, I thought you were like 21 years old. So when you say you dated yourself, I just want you to know there's no way you did it until you let us know. So anyways, but I think one piece that you said that was so important was that re-educate. But I think that's important across the board. I mean, not necessarily just with Black history, but I think in general, I love when you said it's important to go and do your own reading, do your own research. I think that's so powerful. And I think that when you said that, I think that's a key to just learning in general, is just do our own research and digging and kind of read up on things. So thank you for sharing that with us. I'll go to another panelist that would like to share. Do you feel like we are hitting the mark when it comes to that call of action? Amber, go for it.
I agree wholeheartedly with what Allison said. I think we've done an okay job. I think we are still just beginning to unpack what Black history is. And I think some good evidence pointing to where we are in that journey is the reaction the past couple of years, particularly around Juneteenth 2020. I was floored to learn of how many Americans didn't know about this really, really important holiday in our history as a nation, but particularly in our history as Black Americans. So I think that points to where we are in this journey. We began unpacking, we know about MLK, we know about Rosa Parks, but there's so many nuances and so much more to unpack. And I had never heard President Ford's actual proclamation around Black History Month. And it was interesting hearing what the intent was, because you said they were saying we would celebrate the accomplishments. And I think that's kind of where we're going wrong with Black History Month right now. It is important for us to celebrate the accomplishments, but we also have to confront the ugly part of our history as a nation, as Black Americans, and as a nation as a whole. So I think if we want to reach that goal of really celebrating Black History Month, we have to revisit that intent and make it a little bit more holistic.
No, I agree. I think intent is key. And to your point, I would agree. The proclamation might have been a little soft versus saying let's actually revisit the past and also, you know, allow us to celebrate the accomplishments. So thank you for that, Amber. Tony or Jake, either one of you all. I feel like I see something. Go for it.
Jake, you want to go first? Okay, I'll go first. So, you know, Allison, I'm going to out myself too. I was pretty young. I was pretty young though when Gerald Ford said that. But I was in school then. I didn't know that he said it though until I became an adult. I would say, you know, for me, I got to say, I'm just gonna out myself. I think we've done a horrible job. I think we have, and we're doing a better job now. We're doing a better job now. But in the past, we did a horrible job. See, for me, I grew up in Los Angeles, California. So I grew up in Southern Cal. Like I grew up where Dr. Dre, Snoop, and all of them where they came up. That's where I grew up. I'm a graduate of Crenshaw High School, right in that Crenshaw district. And so for me, growing up in school, I didn't know what Black History Month was because it was taught throughout Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, Crispus Attucks, York, all these people, all these names that you hear in Black History Month only, they were taught to me throughout the whole year. So I didn't know what Black History Month was shortly, like maybe a little bit before I joined the military at 18. And so I thought it was kind of strange, like, what's this Black History Month thing? Because it was taught, like I said, it was taught to me throughout my whole school years, growing up in elementary school and going through most of high school. And so it took me, and I think a lot of us Americans, and actually a lot of us in the world, after George Floyd was murdered, and I think that that awakened something, not just in, let's say, uh, I hate using that phrase, white America, but I think it awakens something in all of us. Like sometimes I joke with my wife, she's not black, and I tell her like it took the George Floyd incident for us to have some conversations about our education, for me to realize that everyone wasn't taught about Frederick Douglass, about Juneteenth, about so many different things throughout our history, even Emmett Till and many, many others, like Amber so eloquently said, it's not just the good, but it's just the bad. And it's all of that that makes us who we are as Americans. So, in my saying that we did a horrible job, is by saying that what I would love to see one day is that, I mean, Morgan Freeman said something to Mike Wallace years ago in a 60 Minutes interview. He said, like, I believe he said that Black history shouldn't just be, it's not just regulated to 1 month. It's our shared history. It's American history. And so although I believe we've done a bad job in the past, we're doing a better job now. I'm optimistic and I'm hopeful for the fact that one day that we won't need a Black History Month. It'll be American history.
That is powerful. I love a lot of what you said. Quick question for you, Tony, to come back your way with that question. When you say some of the things that you learned throughout the year, would you say, or do you think that those were some of the typical names and events that we tend to shine a light on, right? So when you say
Right.
Frederick Douglass, we say Martin Luther King, we say some of the events and some of the prominent names that tend to be the ones that we always learn about, you know, who and been at the stoplight. Do you agree it's those same names? And when we think about Black History Month, we want to go a little bit deeper into some of the more nuanced portions past of Black History Month?
Rodney, you hit the nail on the head. I remember when my kids were in elementary school, they actually had this sheet of different names that they would pick from in Black History Month because they went through a more affluent area school that was, you know, more affluent. And so they had these names on a list, right? And there's all the usual suspects of Black History Month. But then there were other names that weren't really deep. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Kobe Bryant, love Michael Jordan, love Michael Jackson, but no offense, like they're not Black history. And so, yeah, we definitely need to dig deeper um, into who we talk about on Black History Month, who we educate. You know, that it's not just about, you know, the entertainers who are great and different things like that, and not just the usual suspects, but people like York. Like people have no idea. Here, living in the Northwest, there's a lot of people, Black, white, Native American, and other different races, who have no idea who York was and the Lewis and Clark expedition. And so, yes, definitely going deeper. Absolutely.
No, I agree. I love that comment. I love that you brought that up. And kind of what how I opened it up. I think it's important that we also celebrate not just the names, the prominent members, but even some of the institutions, some of the events. Black Wall Street, like a lot of those things I think oftentimes we miss out on. So thank you for bringing that up, Tony. Jake, did you have anything you want to share on this one, Jake?
Yeah, I would definitely say that if you go to 1974 and you could just look at it in 10-year increments, and to say that there's not progress from what it was, I mean, I don't see how anybody could really say that, because from how it was to how it is a drastic difference. Like seriously, it's a draft. You went from what she brought up, the Tuskegee, all that type of stuff. Slavery pretty much came too far before that to where we are today. Like it is amazing progress. Amazing. Like to me, just think 1974, how was it you go to town? 2022, how is it when you go to town? We can just start with that, and then it's important to learn about the history to know about where we came, but you can't just look at the bad history that far back and you can't not say that we haven't made great progress. I mean, great progress. And if anybody agrees with that, maybe speak up. And I mean, think about how many millionaires that were African American or Black way back in 1974, just as an example. Not very good example, but I mean, it shows the point. How many athletes were there in 74? Not that we're talking about athletes. How many were there back in 74 compared to 2022? How many in Congress, Senate? You know, you can go down the whole president, vice president. You can go down the whole list, and to say that there hasn't been progress from 1974. Obviously, my perspective is much different. I respect every single one of your perspective because everybody's brought up different, lives a different life, is shown a different history. But just, I disagree that there hasn't made drastic improvement. So I'll leave it at that. And I guess when I get a question from probably every single one of you.
No. I will say, Jake, I would say, you know, just to chime in, thank you for that, right? I think that is the whole purpose of this particular panel, and we all come from different backgrounds, different lived experiences. So I think that is it's very powerful to hear you say that, because I agree. I mean, you know, there has been progress. So you know, I think we needed to hear that, and I think that's important to kind of highlight. So I'm in agreement. Does the panel, before we kind of move on, anyone want to any follow-ups to that particular question?
Yeah, I wanted to riff. I think I'm talking too much. I want to riff back at like what Tony said about schooling and how they're okay. In suppose let's take my school for example. We would have we even had AP US history. We had the density of names and events and years was ridiculous, and we did not get the nuance as much. I remember we did talk about the different perspectives with W.E.B. Du Bois, but it was so short. Like we couldn't really like. There's so much complexity with even Frederick Douglass. There's so much complexity with MLK versus Malcolm X, and so many like very deep writings from folks like James Baldwin. I wish I had more time to learn from the different like imperfect thought throughout the history. I wish we had more time for that. And I think that might be also what Black History Month is about, as Amber and Allison are talking about as well. Like we have a lot of atrocities to also address, and we have commentary. We have commentary about loving and elevating folks too. And like addressing events, a different perspective about events, or like different strategies of elevating the Black community. So like it would be cool to have that nuance throughout use Black History Month to like go further, go deep, as Tony said. So just that was my piece.
No, thank you. I appreciate that, Aisha. That is great to that piece too. And again, I'll throw a little piece in, and for the panelists, please feel free to join if you have any questions. Even with Jake, I think what Jake said was very, very powerful. And I think what Jake spoke to is a little bit of equality, right? Being equal. But I think that nowadays, I think that's why the conversation has shifted more towards equity, right? What we're saying is that our past has not allowed us to have the same starting line, right? We didn't start from the same place. So I think that's why the conversation has shifted more to equity, if I'm not mistaken. And what we're saying is that to revisit the past is to understand that we all didn't start the same place. So to like, what do we do to make sure that everyone has the same access, same accessibility, same teachings, same learnings? So I think that's one thing why you'll see now in the space we're in, we moved towards the equity and less towards equality. Because I would agree with you, equality is there. It is from 1976 to now. So many things are a lot better. We don't have the segregation that we have. So absolutely. So I don't know. I just throw that out there. Anyone want to chime in on that piece when we talk about that equity versus equality? Or am I hitting the mark? I see Tony, then Amber. So Tony, then Amber.
No, Amber first, ladies first.
Oh, Amber, go for it. Listen, I just saw the hands. I went off hands. The speed. I'm a little quicker.
So I would say we still even have work to do in terms of equality. You can look at politics. You can look at voting rights. Black folks are still being suppressed when it comes to voting in this country. So that's not equality. We thought we handled that decades ago. And I would also, when we're thinking of the equity piece, I think we can all agree that in certain ways, this country is a much safer, better place to live in. But in 2022, me telling you that I'm a Black person, you can still use that identifier to predict my economic success, my educational success, health disparities, all of these things. If we were really as far advanced in this work as we thought we were, my race would matter in terms of my outcomes in adulthood, in terms of my quality of life. So I think when we talk about revisiting the history, it's not because we want to stay there and just harp on all the bad that's happened in the country, but in order to truly move forward, we have to confront those things, undo that, to your equity point. And I think that's the best way and only way we can truly move forward.
Thank you, Amber. Tony?
Wow, Amber, that was very well said. I mean, I almost feel like I don't need to speak, but very well said. Yeah, the one thing about where we are today, we have definitely come a long way from where we were. When you look at slavery into where we are now, we have come a long way. But for us to also be able to have an equitable society where that can actually exist. Like you said, Amber, we've got to confront the past. And so while I think we've made significant progress, we will come to a point eventually where we won't get to where we want to be. And that's not going to happen unless we reckon with the past, make make recompense with the past, and embrace it and say this is who we were, not just for Black Americans or African Americans to know where we came from, but we all know where we as all of Americans came from. We look at all of our amendments that have been changed in the Constitution that would make things better, but there's a huge difference between making a law and then actually applying it. And that goes to voting rights, that goes to everything. So we have a ton of laws that the Constitution never envisioned with all these different amendments. But when you look at all the amendments, and like I said, when they were made laws, it's one thing for making it a law, it's another to apply it in the right way so that we can all be equitable, all have access to voting rights, all have access to the things we want to have access to, and all have equal protection under the law. So we still got a long way to go, but yes, we've definitely progressed further.
Thank you, Tony and Amber. Way to, and just so everyone knows, that was totally a curveball that was not in our script here. So thank you all for handling that question, with handling that and providing a lot of insight. And thank you, Jake, for kind of starting that conversation to get us there. Going a little bit back on script a little bit, if you all don't mind. We're gonna go back to Black History Month a little bit, right? And I'm going to talk about the way it's portrayed, right? The portrayal of Black History Month, and it's a kind of a two-parter, actually a three-parter in a little bit. So you'll see the first question. I will love a couple of the panelists to maybe answer, and then the second question, a few more, and then we'll have the culminating question. So here's how I'm looking at it. When we think about Black History Month and how it's portrayed, I'm looking at how are Black people represented in lessons, so the things we've been taught. So I think Allison hit on that. How Black people represented in lessons during Black History Month versus outside of Black History Month? So how do you usually perceive us? How do we come off? What does it say when we're inside of Black History Month? How do you perceive Black culture? So just a couple questions with that one, then I'll go outside of that in a second. So a couple when we're inside of it. What do you get when we're inside of Black History Month? What do you say about Black people's contributions? And anyone jump in.
I'll jump in. I mean, for me, it's an opportunity to be presented with facts that I may not have been presented with before, and to learn new information and to process that. So I'm grateful for that, because I don't, like I said earlier, I do not feel like I was given the facts or the complete set of facts. I just wish that, in America, we love to celebrate accomplishment. What we don't do is talk enough about the painful bits or our failures or where we failed as a group or culture. To the points that were already made earlier by Tony and Amber, I would, other than, Frederick Douglass and the no names, why don't we have an honest discussion about Rodney King incident? Why don't we have these honest discussions about George Floyd? And maybe it's too soon, but, but we need to. And that it really needs to be a part of it. And I mean, and it's not just about Black History Month where we do that. We as a culture have a tendency to do that, whether we're talking about Black history or we're talking about white history. And I hate even just using those two different designations, but even like, I'll just use my own personal, even about female history, Female History Month, where's that? But let's talk about the painful bits and the good bits, because only by embracing all parts of it are we going to get whole, right? And heal from it. Maybe a little
Gotcha.
topic, sorry.
No, you're gonna bring it full circle for me. So thank you, Allison. So I actually will go to does anyone see it differently when we're outside of Black History Month? Do you all see lessons that are taught when we're not inside of month of February? Is it different from when we're inside of Black History Month?
Or I guess I'll go there. Yeah, I do. My youngest daughter, she's still in school right now. But I saw it through my children's, I have 4 children, so I saw it throughout, 3 of them are adults now, but saw it through what they were taught. And so let's say they might learn something about Thomas Jefferson, right? And so if it's not Black History Month, Sally Hemings, not brought up. You don't hear her name. You have no idea who she is. But in Black History Month, you might hear her name and who she was, and then the discussion possibly around that. And that's what I meant earlier about like and Amber said it, Allison, you said it too, Aisha, I think you said it as well, is that when um when we look at our history, if we're not mentioning the whole part of history, then we're not getting the full picture. I think Jake, you said something like that too. We're just not getting the full picture unless it's Black History Month. And we just gotta stop doing that. We just teach it. We can handle it. We can handle the facts. We can handle Sally Hemings. I mean, it's a very interesting dynamic. Did she really love Thomas Jefferson? Were they really in a relationship? It's an interesting discussion, and it doesn't have to just be had during Black History Month. It should be had like anytime like the founding presidents were mentioned and you talk about Thomas Jefferson. Yeah, talk about the fact that there's a lot of Black people named Jefferson. Gee, I wonder why. Talk about those different things, like let's lay it out there. We can all handle it. I mean, I think most of us want to have an equitable society and a society where we're all seen as like people and not our races. But until our history, and that goes to all of our school boards across the nation, until we start teaching those things and having those interesting conversations, we'll never be whole. But I hope that I'm optimistic that one day we will. As long as other cities outside of Issaquah keep having conversations like this, I think it'll happen.
Thank you, Sony. Amber is up. I don't see any hands up. So I think, no, Jake, your hand's up. Jake, hands up. Jake, go for it.
I guess from what Allison was saying about if there was White History Month or if there was Women's History Month, to make that point, I'd like to ask her what she believes, or you guys, anybody can jump in. What do you think would be taught if there was a White History Month, and do you think that it would? We'll just leave it at that, and we'll move on after.
Yeah, I'm glad to answer. So first of all, I think most of what we learn in history right now is White History Month. Okay, so it's all taught. They always say history is taught from the point of the victor. White people have been in control of the U.S. from the day we landed on the shores. Unfortunately, the viewpoint that is the broad viewpoint that is taught in most textbooks and the way it's been taught, and certainly the way I learned, and I know that from like Aisha's generation, I am hopeful that it is a broader viewpoint because our culture is broader at this point in our life cycle of the country. But for instance, for my example, like race relations was brought up in the context of reading the book Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. That's just a really bad way to do it now, and I think they've realized that. But that's the way that I learned it, so that means there's a whole cohort of people in this country that learned it that way. And when I say female history, it's similar to the Black. I do not want to equate it. I am not equating it. I'm just saying it's a similar type of thing where the accomplishments of women and the importance of women, because we weren't the people in power for a good part of our history. So our accomplishments tend to get a bit backburnered and the light isn't shown on them as much, similar to the Black experience. Not equating it, similar. So I'm just saying that, it's my hope that at one point my grandchildren, when they're going through this, are not having to have a Black History Month or a Female History Month, that it's just our history. It's our shared experiences. It's all of these paths none of us were born here. I mean, we all came to this nation. We founded it, whether we were brought here as indentured servants or we got on the boat ourselves or we got, on the plane. We've all decided to make this our home, and therefore the history should be representative of all those paths, good and bad, all of it, and not filtered to the advantage of one particular group. That's what I hope for my grandchildren.
Thank you, Allison and Jake. You're a wonderful moderator. I love that question. You'll take my job. And Amber, I know you wanted to add something to that as well. Go for it.
Working in DEI, this is a question that I hear pretty often. And my response is typically to take race out of it and think about another demographic. So particularly the example I like to use is Pride Month, LGBTQ+ month, which is June. We celebrate Pride Month and we don't celebrate heterosexism month or heterosexual month because everything in this country already caters to people who identify as heterosexual. If you look at most forms, if it indicates genders of spouses, you're going to see husband and wife. You're not going to see husband and husband or wife and wife. So I think that's a good way to look at it. Even if we're taking race out, the concept still stands. Like Allison was saying, there's always one group in power, one group that has more privilege, and another group that doesn't. And these months really are an opportunity to highlight those who don't necessarily have power in this moment. But I do want to go back to the original question, Rodney, about like what we're taught about in Black History Month. In addition to like overlooking some of the painful parts of our past, I think growing up for me personally, another part that was overlooked was some of the less respectable figures in Black history. Like it wasn't until adulthood that I learned about Bayard Rustin. He was Martin Luther King's right-hand man, one of the most important figures in Black history, but we didn't learn about him. He wasn't propped up because he identified as gay. He didn't fit the mold of what we wanted a Black man to look like. Similarly to Rosa Parks and her not moving on the bus. There was a young lady who months before had done the same thing by the name of Claudette Colvin. She's not propped up because she was a teenage, unwed, single mom. Again, it didn't fit the mold of what we wanted Black history to look like. So in addition to confronting some of the atrocities, I think we also have to just kind of reimagine what accomplishment and what success can look like in terms of Black history.
Thank you, Amber. This conversation, it wants to be had. This space is growing, so I want to keep it going. I see Aisha, your hand went down. Do you want to? I'm calling you out now. You want to add a little bit to that, and then Jake, I also see you as well. So I'll keep those going. So Aisha, go for it.
Just last word. Since we should probably go to questions soon. I want to make sure, like, I think I alluded to this, but to say straight up, to me, it was a dichotomy. Black History Month was about celebrating leaders, not everything outside of that. Like any perception of Black community was like atrocity happened, and then people forget in a day if they even hear about it. And then in Black history itself, a lot of things, like if you ask anyone who isn't a Black person, well, the first thing they'll think about is the visceral violence. Like we only think of, and this is what I was reminded of while watching a video. It's not like coming authentically from me, that we're only reminded of like the Black body, like the violence on the Black body, like it's an object. Like if we think about it like philosophically, it's an object. Like that's how we all think. We don't think of anything else. And to relate as human beings, to understand, to become brothers and sisters of like how I relate to people who are hurt. Like as a Muslim, I'm hurt when other Muslims are hurt. If I want to feel hurt when Black folks are hurt, like really, really feel that hurt, I need to feel the Black love. I need to understand folks. Like I've started developing that, but that took like me reaching out and looking at, like reaching out to folks who I have around me, and then learning from social media. I didn't get that outright from not Black History Month or even Black History Month. Like we really need to make an effort to like intertwine our communities, like as non-Black folk. We need to make that effort. That was my last.
Awesome. Thank you. Jake, I think Jake oh yeah, there you go. Jake, you wanna have a couple things you wanna add to it?
I mean, to me, color or not, we just need to move forward. Everybody's equal. Everybody's created equal, and everybody has equal opportunity. Some places might not be 100% equal, but it does go both ways. There's people in the white community that don't get an equal opportunity to other people in the community, even if it's a predominantly white community, right? No matter what community it is, there's always people that don't get the opportunities. If it's all Black community, if it's all white community, it's all Mexican community. It's just, and then the equality, talking about the History Month, LGBTQ, right? How can there be a month for LGBTQ before there's a Jewish History Month? Because of all the months, of all the races that have ever been, had the worst done to them, right? If anybody disagrees, I would definitely like to hear it, but I would say by the numbers and all that, that there should definitely be a Jewish History Month. If it's, you know, anybody have anything to that? I just feel like if there's LGBTQ, there should definitely be a Jewish History Month, because, I mean, come on.
Jewish History Month, I believe it's May. I don't know that it's widespread, like celebrated, but there's certainly a Jewish History.
So it's not celebrated, but it's under wraps.
I don't know that it's under wraps. I think if more folks wanted to put energy towards celebrating it, I personally, I'll speak for myself, I don't have a problem with anybody celebrating Jewish History Month, and I hope no one on this panel would either.
Yes. Tony,
I would like to jump in, and just to, with that, I would just like to jump in and it's so powerful listening to such a diverse group of folks, and I just love it. This is our Issaquah. It's full of diversity of opinions, and I think I love this panel, and Rodney, I think you've been doing a fantastic job as a panelist, as a facilitator, to just respect and really give everyone an opportunity to share these opinions. And so, again, I think these are very, very important conversations that we need to continue as a community. And I think, again, at the same time, I do want us to invite us all again to find what's that common ground, what's that unity that we can find. And yes, addressing the past, acknowledging how we all feel, and yes, find a way to move forward, but also really acknowledge our differences, right? So again, just also appreciating everyone. I think this has been a great conversation. Unfortunately, we didn't have a chance to go in much depth. We only had an hour. We have about 5 minutes here left. I think there might be some attendees that have some questions. And so perhaps if Rodney's okay with that, perhaps we can have some questions from the audience, and then we can close for the day. Tonight, we have a really fun event, a trivia challenge that we would love to have you there. And with that, I think we should all continue these conversations. This is not the first and should not be the last conversation on very, very important community challenges, right? What do you think of that? Is that okay if we move to some questions from the audience and some comments?
Yeah, no, I totally think so. I know we have 5 minutes, but Shay, do you have in the questions, do you have one or two that could be an easy one for us to address?
Yes, unfortunately, I can't say that they're going to be easy, but I do want to say that if you all could give us a quick recap, because there was a really, really good question in the chat about how schools versus communities actually handle educating us about history. And I and I see Jake is ready to answer that one, because I definitely feel like that's a really hard question to answer. We all have, I know I have kids in school, and there are some things I wish they would teach and some things that I wish they didn't, but here we are. So I'll pose that to the panelists and give you all an opportunity to go ahead and answer that question for us.
Yes, I will say, keep in mind we have 5 minutes, so we want to be we'll be concise so everyone who wants to speak can address that one. But we'll start with you, Jake.
So recently, Issaquah School District decided to have their meetings, and they want one meeting to be parents of colored children and a different meeting to be parents of none. Has anybody heard anything about that?
I haven't heard anything about it, but I'm not sure. I would love to see information about that if you have it.
And if that's the case, does anybody agree with that?
Oh, absolutely not. Why would those meetings need to be separated?
Is the mayor still available?
Hi, I am, but I am also not responsible. I'm not a school board member. So I think Monica might be able to, for all of those who signed up today, provide some information from the school district. So that's probably the best I could do for today. For Jacob.
It'd probably be something worth looking into.
I have just from my experience, Jake, that's a great question you mentioned. My eldest daughter was at a school district in Tacoma Unified School District, or Tacoma School District years ago. She's now a graduate of University of Washington. But anyway, the school had a summit like that, like that. I did not agree with it at first, and then the principal and I really had some conversations about it. And then I'm just guessing here, but it became a thing of like wanting to know, okay, children who are children of color, whether it be Latino, wanted to find out from them, what is it that the Latino students need? What is it that, Black students need? What is it that the white students need? And then bringing them all together to make a cohesive thing to make the school better. So just to kind of find out a fact-finding mission of that. And that, I'm just guessing, but maybe that's the intent.
I would think the class would make a better sense of doing it through class as opposed to race, because rich or poor, that's kind of, I would say, a better category to go on than basing it on race, because I would say poor people live more similarly than a poor white guy to a rich white guy, or a poor black guy to a rich black guy. So I would think that if you have to separate and not bring people together, at least do it in the way that is actually how society acts. Class is what the problem is these days. It's not as much, it's still there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to offend anybody, but it's more about class than race, I believe, because and then when we see things like the Issaquah School Board doing that, what kind of a message does that send to the kids or the parents? Separation. And it's time to quit separation in every regard. Everybody needs to come together. So
thanks again, Jake. And yeah, thank you again. So appreciating. And again, unfortunately, at the city, we don't have any control whatsoever. We would love to follow up with the school district, but we don't have any. We function as two separate entities, right? And so yeah, we can follow up and ask questions and bring them back, but at the city level, we really don't have a say at all in what the school district is doing. So with that, Rodney and Shay, if you're okay, we do have another community member who has a question or comment. Helen, I brought you up and you're able to turn on your camera and mic. You have the floor. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. As on the attendee section, I'm also a member of the Equity Board. And just to the point, Jake, that you mentioned about the Issaquah School District meeting, I signed up for it because I got the communication. I have a daughter in elementary. And yes, it actually, I don't know if it didn't happen. I signed up for it, but I wasn't invited into the Zoom call. I don't know if on the other side, I was about 10 or 15 minutes into it. I kept signing back in, but the host didn't. I don't know, because it's a recruiting company that was getting information for school superintendent, like any feedback from Black parents or children, people with Black kids. But just to your point, I mean, for me, I'm also in DEI. It was a red flag that there was even such a separation of meetings, because there's another one happening for the general parents of Issaquah School District on Thursday, but there's this separate one for parents of color. But I was also curious to go in, one as a parent, but also as a D&I person, and also on the equity board, just to why, but again, the Zoom call didn't actually happen. But for me, that was the point, like they shouldn't even be, but if there is, then let me go in and also give my voice to it. If there is need to hear it, then I might as well. But yeah, you made a very good point, but I didn't even participate in the call because I wasn't invited in. I don't know if it was a technical issue or whatever happened at the back there, but I'll be in for the Thursday one. And again, it's all of us. We are all in this together as Issaquah School District parents, whether we're Black or white or with immigrants or whatever it is. But yes, you mentioned a good point.
Very, very important topics of conversation. So appreciating you all. And I think just another proof that we are just at the beginning, right, of this journey, and how we must continue these conversations, come together as a community, include the school district, include families, children, all ages, all socioeconomic levels. So just really include everyone in these very important conversations. I realize we are beyond our time right now. So Rodney and Shay, if you have any final comments to close everything, it would be great. Thank you for those who you have the poll on the right-hand side, please, and those who answered. And again, thank you so much for a very, very powerful conversation this afternoon.
Yes, no, thank you, Monica. Shay, I'll let you end it, Shay, but thank you, Monica. Thank you, panelists. Thank you to the city of Issaquah for inviting us to be a part of this conversation. One thing I was just leave is just to continue the conversation and continue learning, researching, and writing. And most importantly for me, I think it's important to extend grace. So I think also with a lot of things that we're talking about, make sure you just kind of can extend the grace and understand and ask the right questions. So I will leave it at that. And Shay, I'll let you close us out.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Rodney. You were a phenomenal. Let me say it again. You were a phenomenal person to lead this conversation, and I'm so grateful that you decided to help us with this. Also, all the panelists, you all really made this conversation strong and important and valuable, and I'm so happy you were able to make it, and I'm so happy that you all were willing to support me by doing so. So thank you so much for your time and your consideration in this conversation. I know every question wasn't easy, and I know some of the information was hard to digest, and I appreciate you all taking the time to do that. And I also want to thank Monica for all her hard work and Hannah for helping us with this. This was an amazing event, and I want to continue to have these conversations in the future. There's not much time left for today, but we definitely want to continue these conversations. So I encourage you all to continue to talk with us, with each other, and we will figure this out together. I also want to thank Mayor Polly for agreeing to participate in this event as well. We always appreciate your attendance and your voice. And we love that you all were available for us. So we appreciate you all joining us today. Thank you again, Rodney, Tony, Aisha, Allison, Amber, Jake. It was great having you guys here today. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to our next meeting.
Thank you.